Hello chess friends and welcome to Zado's chess channel and welcome back to the new chess classic tournament in 2021. Today's derby of the day was of course the clash between Alireza Firouzja versus Magnus Carlsen. So after the day 1 and day 2, Magnus Carlsen was in the lead. Hikaru Nakamura is now on the second place with only half of the point less than Magnus Carlsen. Alireza Firouzja was also very good in the tournament, had his ups and downs, but I still think Alireza will make it to the quarterfinal stage. Vasily Sov probably there. We'll see also, I think, Teimur Ajabov, but also the great Shakria Mamedjarov is also playing very good in this tournament. So this sixth guy, I think, will make it to the quarterfinal stage for sure. So let's check out now the game between Alireza Firouzja against Magnus Carlsen. It is sort of a clash between youth and experience. I think in this particular game you see all of the opening preparations here by Magnus Carlsen. Magnus Carlsen has been sometimes a little bit criticized by the media because of his lack of preparation sometimes in openings. He introduced to us, I think, a very nice system, an anti-cold system, because now recently Alireza Firouzja played very often this cold system, and the cold system is a very calm and pragmatic opening line. And I think I would give Alireza Firouzja a name for his opening line, because Alireza Firouzja is now using one particular line of the cold system and he's crushed many top grandmasters in this lines. No one is using this line, so I'll introduce you this cold system played by Alireza Firouzja. I think it would be very cool if Alireza would have his own opening, like maybe the cold Firouzja system. It sounds at least great. So as I said here, I think Magnus Carlsen will apply a very great anti-cold system with the move bishop to f5. So let's check out now what's all about here. D4, D5. Now Alireza plays knight to f3. We have knight to f6 and now e3. It seems like a strange idea to block out your bishop here like this, but what Alireza played now recently is after potential c5 move. He played very often this d takes c5 after e6, something like a6 b5 and similar stuff. So it's very annoying to play against this one, because it leads now into a complicated line where black will have a powerful pawn central control, but white can also end this particular opening with two pass pawns on the A and B file. You should really check out Alireza Firouzja's games recently. He played many times this cold system, but now Magnus Carlsen, I think, goes into the best line. He plays now bishop to f5. He says basically, okay, if you want to play passively, I'm just occupying the e4 square. Here c4 played by Alireza. We have c6. Now after the move knight to c3, here we have the move a6 by Magnus Carlsen. It's not a problem here to play the move a6, because here we have already blocked our bishop out. So many times in Slav defense structures, it's similar to the Slav defense, you have trouble to develop your likes for bishop. Somehow the bishop could be blocked out by its own pawns by the potential move e6. Now it's not a problem. The bishop's activity of blacks, it's perfectly fine, because Alireza played this passive setup, this cold system with the move e3. So after move a6, here Alireza chases the bishop. Now we have bishop to g4, queen to c2, and now Magnus plays a very aggressive move g6. It maybe not the best of move is you put this move into an engine. The engine suggests here, for instance, something like e6. It's a normal idea to develop the dark square bishop, but here it was probably part of Magnus Carlsen preparation. He played now the move g6, h3, bishop to e6. So you see Magnus is already threatening to take out the pawn, and that's why Alireza passes through here with the move c5. This move c5, I would love if the bishop would be here. If Alireza Firouzja's bishop would be on f4, then we would have, I think, a very common setup that happens many times if in this Harvitz attack, if you're familiar with the Queen's Gambit decline and then the Harvitz attack, when we're pushing the bishop first on f4 and then c5. This could be a great idea to simply lock the queen side here and proceed with our normal attack on the queen side with b4, a4 and similar stuff. But with the bishop on c1, it's not so good, because Magnus will punish now this passive bishop on c1. He plays now simply normal develop, bishop to g7, bishop to d3, knight to d7, and now f4 played by Alireza. He wants now to break and open the position around the square f5. Magnus responds with the normal idea, b6. This is a great move. Whenever you feel a little bit pressured by your opponent's pawns, you should break the pawn central control that black has built here now, because after a potential b4 move, that's the main issue here. We could go a5. A5 is then great, because as we said, we have some troubles because we didn't play with our bishop here on b2, or maybe somewhere else we didn't castle. The rook could be loosed on the a file, so a3 for instance wouldn't be here a possibility. So that's why here after move b6, Alireza played normal attacking chess like he wants to play. Of course, he loves these types of positions when the attack is all over the board. After move f5, we have g takes f5, and now c takes b6 by Alireza. We have now c5 by Magnus. This is a great counter attack because Magnus says, okay, I can take out the knight whenever I like. And actually now the game has reached already its critical point, because here Alireza makes, I think, a slight inaccuracy with the move bishop to f5. It seems great. It seems that you're breaking and opening the position in front of Black's king, but Black's king hasn't castled. Black's king is perfectly fine here on e8. A better idea here is the move b7. b7 gives, I think, here great pleasure for white, because black has to react, black has to make something, and meanwhile you can maybe then afterwards, after something like rook to a7, we could go castling. Still, you need another tempo in order to take out the rook, and now I think with the activity on the f file we could have really great game. So bishop takes f5, maybe not the best of moves that Alireza played. Now Magnus plays queen to b6. Alireza attacks the queen. He hopes for that he could deflect the queen from the defense of the bishop, and now here Magnus, I think, tricked a little bit Alireza Firouzja with this move, queen to b5. This move prevents now white from castling. Even if you take here something like bishop takes e6, f takes e6, it's not such a bad position here for black, because black can occupy here the position with a very powerful outpost on e4. So the queen is now restricting white's king from castling. Now I think we could castle here from black's perspective, castling, then maybe knight to e4. Even then e5 pawn breakthrough is possible, because after knight to e4, then you're liberating also the long diagonal for the bishop. So it's a bad game here for black. I think with the move queen to b5, Magnus Carlsen tricked a little bit Alireza here. In the continuation, Alireza has to retreat with the bishop, and I think after the move queen to b8, Magnus has now solved all of the positional problems. What Magnus is having now is a pawn central control. Finally he gets over in the center, because if you take out here, then you could risk this idea, queen takes g3, and your knight is hanging. So that's why Alireza has to first castle, and now Magnus plays queen to g3. Anyway, we have knight to f5, bishop to f5, bishop to f5, e6. So we're building now fortress on light squares, kicking away simply the light square bishop. Here Alireza tried the counter attack with the move rook to f3, queen to e1. We have some perpetuals, and now after move queen to h4, here Alireza tried rook to f4, but now queen to h5. The queen is perfectly fine. Now Alireza has to retreat, but now comes c4, and you see Magnus Carlsen doesn't have any more the light square bishop on the board. So Alireza has the bishop pair, but it's not such a great bishop pair. We should always evaluate the bishop's strength by its potential ability to occupy some diagonals, to somehow open the position. These bishops are really not good. First of all, what we should notice now, this bishop on d3 is paralyzed by the pawn chain that Magnus Carlsen has built here. Now this bishop on c1 is blocked out simply by its own pawns. So when we evaluate the bishop strength, it's not so good. The knights are much better here, because the center is closed. When the center is closed, the knights are also perfectly fine. Then we can occupy with some centralized squares. After move c4, we have bishop to e2, queen to g6. Magnus forced the trades of queens, doesn't matter, because he realizes that he has now a nice grip on light squares. Although he doesn't have the light square bishop, but he has a great protection with the light squares, with the light square pawns. And now it's time to occupy further the light squares. After move knight to c3, castling, we have h4 here, and now knight to h5. Here, even if you take bishop takes h5, g takes h5, it's not such a problem, because you can risk this idea. e5 is simply a liberating move for black. If black manages to push the pawn on e5, it simply opens the position too much. So as said, after the move knight to h5, rook to f2, Alireza Firouzja realizes his problems in the position. This is, as we said, not such a great bishop pair that Alireza has here. Knight to g3, we have bishop to d1. You see now Magnus occupies files, occupies squares, occupies really all of the potential diagonals here. For instance, this dark for bishop diagonal is very good here. So he has now full control all over the board. Rook to b8 here, king to h2, and basically this move king to h2 improves the position of the knight. The knight gets on a better square. Even so, here the knight on f5 is perfectly fine. So that's why here king to h3, Alireza has to protect now, and you see now Magnus has now a great plan, knight to f6, and then occupying both of this knight around this fixed square on e4. Great positional play here by Magnus Carlsen, and I'm pointing you always out, this is rapid chess. This is rapid chess online, but this how Magnus improves simply his minor pieces is really great. How he finds squares on the board, how he finds new files on the board. Really brilliant positional play by the world champion. So g4 here by Alireza, f5, simply supporting further the e4 square. This is now clear target because the backward pawn will stay there forever. The bishop is still on its starting square. Really weird position of this bishop on c1 and d1. So here rook to g2, king to h7. Now Alireza tries to break the position with the move b3. It's a natural idea because the space advantage around the square c4 that black has built here is simply annoying him too much, I think. So that's why the move b3 is perfectly fine. Now rook to c8, Magnus is now using this other rook, opens the c file. Now after b takes c4, this wasn't the best of move here. Alireza missed, I think, the opportunity to get back into the game, to simply counterattack this bishop. And even if you try, for instance, something like knight to b5, we could take knight takes b5, a takes b5, and now finally I think the bishop could find at least some kind of a way to get into the game. Maybe then after something like, I don't know, c takes b3, bishop to b3, okay, the light square bishop wouldn't be so good, but at least in this particular scenario we would improve the position of the dark square bishop. So as said, b takes c4, and now after rook to c4, the knight is hanging, knight to e2, bishop to h6. Now there's no way that this bishop is coming into the game because the e3, as we mentioned, is simply a long-term weakness. You cannot improve the weakness. Magnus has, as I said, a full domination on the board. So the only way to defend this position was to move bishop to a3, which Alireza unfortunately missed. We have bishop to b3 attacking the rook, but now here Alireza is desperately trying to find some good squares for this dark square bishop. After rook to c1, bishop, knight takes c1, and now knight to e4, cementing the knight. We have knight to d3. You see how Magnus attacks now the light squares, knight to g4, and now rook to e2. Maybe slightly better here is knight to f4, at least to threaten some kind of a counter attack here around the square e6. But okay, here in the game Alireza tried rook to e2, again a new passive move, and now Magnus simply takes, rook takes d2, and now we can take out this one. Also the d4 pawn is hanging. Here in the continuation we have rook to e2, Magnus simply goes back. We have knight to c5, and now the king has to of course play king to f7, knight to d7 attacking the king, and now after rook to b4 in this position Alireza Firouzja resigned, because the problem of this position is that the knight is trapped. You see with the move king to e5, here you have to only play knight to c5, but still this pawn is hanging, and Alireza decided to resign. So really wild stuff. Really great positional game by Magnus Carlsen. So you see how he finds squares on the board. I think he tricked him with his ideas with the queen moves a little bit. The queen was very annoying in the middle of the game. The queen attacked white's king, and then Alireza didn't find great opportunities how to counterattack this one. Got punished because of lack of development, and you see how Magnus still plays the game. So today Jan Nepomniachtchi managed to win this candidate tournament. So you see Magnus is still Magnus, so he knows this positional stuff. He really knows his stuff, as I said. So that's why it will be also a great world championship match between Nepo and Magnus. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Great attack by the world champion. If you want to see more games from this tournament, check out my coverage so far. Here are some games that I've covered before. And if you want to see maybe the best chess games of all time, check out my best chess games of all time series. Here's also the link. And if you maybe want to see the best engines playing, check out my best chess games play by top engines, by Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, Stockfish, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.